There are 12 participants on the call, including you. You are joining your conference as a participant. For a menu of available commands, press *#.
Goal 1 is to build a culture of preparedness. The Region 2 Individual and Community Preparedness Program is focused on preparing communities for disasters by providing them with useful information and training, inspiring people to take action and be ready for any emergency. As part of that goal, we're pleased to be hosting today's webinar where you will learn how to apply elements of effective communication and how to deliver your messaging in a way that leaves a meaningful impression. Our guest speaker today is none other than Mr. Thomas Song. He has been practicing the oldest profession in the world, sales, for 25 plus years. For more than half that time, he worked on Wall Street using proven sales techniques and relationship management strategies. He joined FEMA in 2010 and has led Region 2's outreach on flood hazards. Thomas uses principles in selling to win over indifferent or skeptical audiences. He has also served as a communications coach, developing training to help emergency managers influence the behaviors of decision makers and the public. Thomas, the floor is all yours.
Great, thanks. So everything you have all heard about presentations is wrong. Well, that's not really the case. And in fact, look, we've been to enough meetings and we've been to enough presentations to know what works and what doesn't. But sometimes, for us to really improve, to push our abilities, it's not just about what we see and what we experience, but sometimes it's about the things that we don't see. Now, take for instance this story. Back in World War II, there was a statistician named Abraham Wald. Many people have not heard about him, but he saved thousands of lives. Now, during World War II, the Air Force was experiencing a high rate of casualties for their airplane bombers. So they decided that they wanted to reinforce the plane in strategic areas to keep the pilots safe. Every time a plane came back, they mapped where the bullet holes were, and they accumulated hundreds and hundreds of data points. And so their plan was, let's take those areas that have the highest probability of getting shot and reinforce those areas. Well, Abraham Wald thought otherwise. He said, those planes that are coming back are surviving their injuries, and that what they should be doing, reinforce the areas that are not getting hit, because those are the areas that are probably causing the plane to get shot down. And so today, I love to have you all keep an open mind. There are things that we're going to talk about that may be counterintuitive to what you know about presentations and public speaking. But I want to give just a chance to get some of these ideas accepted. And what we're going to do today is we'll have 4 volunteers, and at the end of each section, we'll have them kind of workshop some of their material with us. What I will ask of you is please be professional. Understand it's not easy to take the stage in front of so many people. And what we really would appreciate is some positive and constructive feedback. Here's today's agenda. So we have 4 modules here. First, we're just going to go over some of the fundamentals of public speaking and presentations. Then we're going to go over how to do a powerful introduction, really hook people from the beginning. And then the 3rd module will go over the middle part of your presentation, keeping people interested and keeping people focused even in a virtual environment. And then finally, talk about how to close strong. Just don't end with the Q&A, but you want to end with your words, not anybody else's. And really punctuate that with that call to action. Because at the end of the day, we're not speaking to an audience just to convey information. We want some action, because these actions can save lives, or at least better them, And it's such a worthy cause that it's important that we do a great job in not only conveying our facts and the things that we have learned and researched, but the goals of our program areas, that bottom line of helping people in whatever area of emergency management you're in. So we'll start with the first module. What are the basics of public speaking and presentations? It starts with perspective. You, as the speaker, as a presenter, should not make your material or delivery about you. We are all here doing our jobs and to share this information in a compelling manner. What have we learned in the decades of emergency management? Is that facts alone don't compel people to take action. And in fact, some of the things that we feel very strongly about, mitigating flood risk, as an example, isn't always accepted. And sometimes that can cause people to be unprepared or be at risk needlessly. And what we've all seen is a devastating impact of natural disasters, man-made disasters, or whatever it is that your program is working towards solving for others. If we can eliminate one person from that impact, we've done our jobs. And if we can impact more, that's even better. And so it's important that we not only learn about the topics and the issues, but we can communicate it so that people could be interested, they can learn, and then they can be compelled to take action. So when you are thinking about your presentation, please get that perspective. What is it that the audience needs? And so today we'll have our first poll question. I don't know if you get to see it, but I want to have an idea of what you the audience, what your expectations are before a presentation. In a second, we should have the poll come up. Okay, so I think you can answer more than once with one selection, so please.
One second, Tom. Can everybody see the poll? BB, can you move that poll on top of the slide deck?
Yep, does everyone see it? Oh, it disappeared. Hold on.
I don't see it.
Does everyone see it now? Okay, great.
So those are the closing. Those are the closing polls, not the initial poll.
Great.
Sorry.
That's all right. These things happen. And we're just going to give everybody about 15 more seconds to respond. Baby, can we get that poll back up? Okay, great. Well, look, you know what? The response is pretty typical. The audience usually has, what's in it for me, as one of their top two expectations. And believe it or not, pre-COVID, when we were having in-person meetings, one of the top 2 or 3 expectations is, will there be food served? So it's kind of interesting when we do go back to our regular life and you do have in-person meetings, think about bringing some candy or some kind of light snack for the audience, because people do appreciate that. And so the what's in it for me is a huge thing. We need to make sure that our material is geared around what we think or what we expect our audience to want to learn. And not only that, we need to do a better job of presenting it in a compelling way. We've been to so many presentations where either the speaker is monotone or reading from a script. And while the information is important, it just gets kind of lost in the delivery. There was a study done where people showed that about 50% of the material is remembered the next day. And then the day after that, it's only 25%. And then 10% after that. So if this is really the case, we need to, A, step up our game and really do a better job of being memorable. And second, we have to have that one or two ideas that we want to leave that impression. While people may not remember the specifics, they can remember something that really stood out to them. And that's going to be a powerful thing. It can be reinforced or revisited at another time. Now, in emergency management, sometimes we deal with a lot of information. So if there are a lot of specifics or a lot of technical details, you can always think about putting them in a handout so that people have a takeaway, can reference it at a future time. But getting into the specifics during the middle of a presentation can sometimes really take a toll on people's attention. So what are the ways of making it more memorable? Well, here are 5 elements that can really help. You have to include the audience. The more people do, the more they'll remember. And so we have the Q&As. People do some breakouts, polling questions. And so I strongly urge people to use the chat box in front of you. Provide us some feedback. Give us some comments while we're going. If you like it, please give us a thumbs up. If you have a question, raise your hand, etc. A lot of times we'll do tabletop exercises. Those are usually big hits. Because once people can immerse themselves in a situation, really kind of act through it, and not just hear it, it has a better chance of being memorable. And one of the biggest things that people often ask is, how do I get rid of the speech fillers? You know, the ums and the uhs. And half the time, it's usually because people are thinking about what they want to say. Right? What are the right words? I was at a presentation where someone from the Army Corps, smart person, they were getting up there, and it seemed like they were just trying to prove how smart they were. And the interesting thing is, that person knew their technical issues inside and out, but really struggled to kind of present it. And for that, I would say, what you need to do is just stick to what you know. Right? Don't try to sound smart. Just be smart. Whatever you're presenting on, I'm sure you've done the research, that you are knowledgeable. Don't try to dress it in any other way. Use the simplest words. And if you can't come up with the word, then define what it is that you're trying to say. Oftentimes, if you're looking for the exact right words or a way to impress the audience, you're going to start to struggle. Stick with what you know. Now, there are other techniques that we'll get into in another module, to using pauses and to really stop, ask the audience a question, not only to get feedback, but also to kind of collect your thoughts. But it is very difficult, and it can be done. So if you are very serious about getting rid of the ums and uhs, you have to make a very conscious effort to do it. So we're going to have our first volunteer today, and his name is Eric Adams. Eric, are you on the line? Can you unmute yourself and start your camera, please?
Good afternoon, Thomas. Good afternoon, everybody out there. Thank you so much for joining the presentation today. We are going to focus on ingredients for a great presentation. So the first thing, pretend like you're making a recipe. You want the audience to be energetic. You want the audience to ask questions. You want the audience to learn some key bullet points of your presentation and to hopefully return to the next presentation yourself or your organization may provide. First of all, you want to focus on what are perhaps the logistics of this event or presentation. Would it be an in-person event to a large group, a large audience? May that be 20 or 30 people? Whether that be a virtual presentation such as we are having today, and you're going to have maybe perhaps two different styles. Also, maybe it will be just a small group, a VIP visit. You may be visiting some sites that may have been damaged by disaster, some sites that may undergo repair soon from a disaster, such as a hurricane or an earthquake. So you want to research the background. You want to know the ins and outs of the subject matter. But during the presentation, you want to have some maybe 3 or 4 some high-level bullet points. So
yeah,
yes,
Eric, sorry to interrupt. So just on that point, so Eric, what are you doing right now? You're out in the Caribbean. Are you working on a disaster right now?
Yes, sir. I am working on the recoveries from Hurricanes Irma and Maria, which hit the territory USVI in 2017.
Okay, great. And so what is one of the big issues that you're dealing with? Are you with the public or elected officials?
I would say it is a combination of both. You're getting a lot of high-level inquiries, for example, let's say from the congressmen or Virgin Island senators, and a lot of updates from people in the media or the public, for example, like on when may this project begin, such as when may that site get demolished.
Okay, so you're talking about rebuilding a damaged building. Is that correct?
Yes, that's one example.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And so how do you describe this to when you're doing a presentation? How would you describe what you're working on? Why it's important or whatever? Like, let's just say you're doing a presentation right now, and you're talking about rebuilding the town library.
Yes.
So how would you go about doing that? How would you introduce yourself and talk about that if you had 90 seconds?
I would think for the public, the general public, you want to highlight how restoration.
Eric,
yes.
I want you to actually do it. So let's pretend right now we are in a town meeting, okay? And we're all sitting down and we all want to know, hey, why isn't the library been rebuilt already? And someone says, we have Eric Adams from FEMA, and he's going to talk about the rebuilding library project. How would you start with that presentation, your part?
Sure. Okay. On the rebuilding of this library, we are coordinating resources with the Department of Planning and Natural Resources here in the territory, which administers services to the territorial libraries. We are working on the getting the damage assessments done and seeing how the restoration of this library will benefit the patrons of the library. That would be the public. How would the public, maybe the territory will decide how maybe this library should be rebuilt, the designing of how the library should be rebuilt. Whereas us, we are coordinating with the territory on how much funding may be needed for the rebuilding of this library. And the key is we want to collaborate with the territory to make sure when this library is designed and when it is rebuilt, it is able to withstand disasters such as wind events, such as seismic events for years to come. So not only will I have the items that people could benefit from for years to come, but also that structure can withstand future disasters to make it more resilient.
That's great, Eric. All right, so I want the audience to provide some feedback. What do you all think about what Eric said or how he said it? What do you think worked if you were the audience? And please use your chat box. Okay, so Karen's saying she liked the fact that you gave people what they wanted. Okay, Lucy's saying, you know, you're doing a little body movement and it could be a little distracting, and that's fine. Look, I understand how tough this is. All right. Someone said you had an energetic delivery. I strongly agree with that. You speak very clearly. You sound very confident. I think that's great. My take here, hold on, let me just look at one more thing. So here's my thing. Eric, and again, I know we didn't give you a lot of prep time, so this isn't a criticism. I think you did a very good job explaining it, but you did it in a very, a very official capacity. You know, you kind of rattled things off, and as an average citizen, you know, I don't really care, right? All I care about is, hey, I love the library. It's, you know, a centerpiece of my community, and I want it rebuilt. And I think at the end, you touched upon that extremely well. You said, hey, we're going to rebuild, and we're going to make it stronger, right? So that's basically saying we know how valuable this is. We want to ensure that it is strong, can withstand this, and we don't do this again. Would you agree that that is kind of the crux of what you were saying?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. So how about this, Eric? So next time, we're going to have you do this once again.
Okay.
Why don't you, try to keep yourself standing still. And here's a little hint. If you have a desk or anything, put one finger on the desk or a chair. And that will actually help you kind of stabilize. Okay? The other thing is, let's reverse what you said. So why don't you start with what that end result of rebuilding that library will be, right? So, and the value that you would appreciate that it provides the community, and then start going into your planning and everything. Does that make sense, Eric?
Yes, definitely. I would focus more on that. I just thought quickly on the fly.
No, Eric, I'm telling you, this is so difficult. I understand this. It usually works a little bit better in person because it's a much more comfortable feeling. We don't have that. We're not able to connect with you and I and the rest of the audience. So I understand how hard it is. Trust me. But nobody expects you to be perfect. But try flipping that around, right? So start with the why. Start with that end result, because that's what the people care about, right?
Yes,
Would you agree? Okay.
Oh, yes.
And then maybe get with that explanation. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Do you need some time to think about it, or do you want to just shoot from the hip right now?
Let me start in about 5-10 seconds.
Sure. Okay. So I'm going to just address the audience. Look, we appreciate the feedback. Understand this. This is a very difficult situation for our volunteers. We're kind of throwing them in the mix. They haven't had a lot of time to prep. And that's not the point. The point is we get to see some of these principles in action. And what Eric has done is, again, I think he did a great job presenting and talking. But he's done it in a way that we've all seen before. And so if we flip that script and start with the end and then go with the explanation, let's see if that sounds better. So if everyone could just kind of wipe their memory clean of what Eric said before, we're going to give Eric a chance to redo that little explanation. You ready, Eric?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Okay, so hey, hello everyone from Town XYZ. Everybody's concerned about the rebuilding of the library. We have Mr. Eric Adams from FEMA to talk about what they're about to do. Go, Eric.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. What you see beside you is the damaged library that was damaged in the hurricanes. But in a few years, this library will be rebuilt. It'll be rebuilt for years to come. It'll serve the children. It'll serve the senior citizens of this community. It also will be built it'll be built stronger. It'll be built better. Also, there will be more resources available for our children, for our senior citizens, for our college students for years to come. There will also be more future items in the library, such as items that will enhance our kids' education. for the future and allow them these skills to do more inclusive research, more high-level research for years to come. And best of all, this library will be built with design standards that will be able to withstand disasters much more resiliently, such as hurricanes and seismic events, which can occur here in the Caribbean.
Okay, Eric, great. All right, audience, what do you think about the retake? Do you think that if you were just someone who lived in that community and you heard Eric, do you think it made a difference the way he did it the first time compared to the way, the way he did it the second time compared to the way he did it the first time? Okay, so look at that feedback, much more to the point. They're saying excellent. Connected with the people on an emotional level. Look, the biggest thing, Eric, whether or not they're angry or they support you, etc., if you show them you care about them or you care about what they care about, it is an amazing way to start that presentation. This is no offense to you. Nobody comes to these presentations to hear Eric Adams. They come to hear what you have to say. So if that's the case, right, we shouldn't be starting with our names. Nobody cares. Get right to the point. That library, you guys love it. We want to make sure it comes back, and we're going to do it better than it was before, because this should never happen again. And your children love it, and now you're speaking to us, right, Eric? Now they're like, whatever it is that I feel about FEMA or this project, at least we understand, hey, they get what our priority is. Does that make sense, Eric?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Any last questions, feedback, or anything from you? Eric?
No, thank you very much for your feedback. Like you said, we're all here to listen and learn.
Yeah, so look, I think overwhelmingly the chat box is saying that your second time was much better. Again, and I don't use the word better like it was bad to begin with. It was just a little different, right? Don't sound, every time you go to these presentations, just listen to what people, how they say it and how they structure it, and you'll see that they all follow the same pattern. Hi, my name is Eric from FEMA. We've done A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then somewhere down the line they're like, and we finally get to the end. No, start with the end. Get them excited, connect with them, and then they'll want to listen to you. Okay, so Eric, if you could just mute yourself and please take yourself off camera. Okay. All right, so we are now at the beginning of the second module. And thanks, everybody, for your feedback. Really appreciate it. Again, please remember how difficult this can be for the people that we are asking to volunteer. So, second chapter, how do you make that first impression? There is a study from the University of Michigan that said people make assumptions of you in the first 7 seconds. And then they have 2 minutes after that to reaffirm or change their mind. And then what they come up with can last 7 years. Now, this may be more true in in-person setting when somebody walks into a room. If you saw somebody looking on the ground, looking disheveled, you're probably saying, oh boy, this is going to be a tough presentation. So in the in-person setting, try to remember, exude that confidence. Understand that you are the subject matter expert here, that your information or what you're trying to share is important. It will help people. It may save lives. It is that important that people need to hear it. You've got to make that strong first impression. And as I was saying to Eric, nobody comes to hear him talk or me talk. They come for the information. So if that's what's important for them, if that's what's in it for me, then why do we start off introducing ourselves? And we're going to get into a little bit of that later at the end of this module. But confidence is something that people often talk about. Now, Amy Cuddy, she has this great TED Talk. She wrote a book. She is a professor, and she talks about faking it until you make it. And in this case, she's talking about faking confidence. So in her research, it was inspired by another researcher who was examining people who were born without the ability to see. And they were given these complex tasks. And when they would accomplish it, they would raise their hand in a V in victory, pump their fist, the chin would go up. These are people who've never been to a sporting event or seen a race like you see on the slide, where that victor puts his hands up. So they were saying that this is something of a natural occurrence, a natural reaction. And what they uncovered was that when people were to pump their fists in the air or do something to celebrate, it actually released endorphins and other chemicals that made people feel good. It made them feel confident. So Amy Cuddy decided to research what would happen if you reversed that. If you were to actually pretend as if you won, do the fist pumps, do some power poses, would that instill some confidence? And in her study, she believes it does. So whether or not you believe it or not, maybe you can give it a try. But the next time you have a presentation or an interview or anything, spend a couple minutes doing what she calls power poses. Hands on the hips, pumping the fist in the air. And try that for a couple minutes and see if it does not calm you down or give you just a little bit of that boost that can help you before you do what it is that you're doing. And so when it comes to introductions, the confidence, the first impression, all important. And then it comes to the introduction. Those first few words could really make a difference on how you hook that audience, what they think of you, especially in a remote environment. Let's take a classic book called Fahrenheit 451. And in case you haven't read it, it takes place in the future, and they have what they call people who are firemen. And they're not firemen as we know it that put out fires, but the firemen in this book, they go seeking books and they set them on fire. And in this story is the perspective of a person who was a fireman and throughout the book transforms and becomes the hero. But the book starts off with this line: "It was a pleasure to burn." Read that line. I think it's very captivating. And it really wants you to learn more about, hey, what goes on in this story? So when you think of your openings for your presentation, try to stay clear of that safety net of, "Hi, my name is," and think, what can you say? What is it that the audience expects or would be really interested in hearing that can get them interested? And here's this great example. Dan Ariely, he's written a few books on persuasion and influence. He's got 2 TED Talks. And I recently saw him in a webinar with other people who are studying behavioral science. And he starts off by talking about his face. Right? Everyone noticed that he only has half a beard. And he starts off his talk by saying he didn't do this intentionally. He's not doing this to distract people. What he talks about, that as a child, he experienced some very severe burning, more than 80% of his body, and that the scar tissue on his face won't allow his face to grow hair. And he's like, now that you know this, it won't be a distraction and we can move on. How great is that? He addresses the issue. And part of me believes that he's doing this on purpose to make that point. But address the issues in the beginning. Get people comfortable. Because the worst thing you want is an uncomfortable audience. We've all been there. You see a very nervous speaker, and you feel nervous for them. It makes you feel awkward. Maybe you want them to repeat themselves, but you don't want to hurt their feelings or get them even more nervous. So for you as an audience member, that makes it very uncomfortable for you. It doesn't allow you to enjoy the talk, and it's very distracting. So this is something that can be a strategy for some of you. So our next volunteer, Ting Sin. Ting, can you take yourself off mute and start your camera, please?
Okay.
And so when I asked for volunteers, Ting sent me an email, and in that email, she was very open and forthright about what her issues are with public speaking and presentations. Ting, do you mind just telling the group, please?
Okay. So when I do public speaking, I stutter because when I naturally stutter, especially when I'm nervous. So this is one thing I want to work on.
Yes. And so, look, what you wrote me, again, and the conversations after, I have to say, Ting is I think she is a very courageous person because this could be something that is embarrassing for others that people just don't want to even deal with. Right? They don't want to get themselves in front of a crowd. They don't want to deal with it. But you keep coming back and saying, I want to improve. I want to get better. And one of the things I think that can really help is understanding that the people in the crowd, they're not out there because to find any enjoyable, to find joy in watching somebody fail. Everybody wants you to succeed. And please, in the audience, get in that chat box. Let's give her words of encouragement because we've all been there in one way or another. So Ting, for you, what I'd like you to do is when you are doing public speaking, when you're presenting, I want you to introduce yourself like Dan Ariely, right? Get all the things that make you nervous out of the way. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so you are working on a project for a ramp for equitable access to public buildings. Is that right?
For accessibility ramp on the sidewalk.
Okay, on the sidewalk. Okay. Do you think this is important?
Yes, I think it's important. Yeah.
Why?
I think everybody have right to access anywhere comfortably because when you have steps there, if you are on wheelchair, like you will have hard time to go up, and the ramp itself not just benefit people from wheelchair or the crutch, it's also benefit for the people who maybe have baby strollers. So just by adding that element there, it benefits so many other people that won't be able to use the space.
Right. So Ting, just think about this. So this little conversation, I think you did a great job explaining it. You didn't stutter, right? You were very comfortable. And this is where you got lost in the material because to me, what you're doing, you're talking about dignity. You're talking about respect for people in the community that need a little bit more or just don't have the same abilities as others. But that does not mean that they should be kept away from certain parts of the community or they should be treated equal, right? That seems like a very important principle, is it not?
Yes.
Okay. So important that it's okay for you to be a little nervous to speak about it, but if you could convince somebody, would that be worthwhile?
Do you want me to talk again? It's really interesting. Now when I talk to you, I feel myself very nervous. I feel a little bit shaky now.
Yeah, of course. Look, that's understandable. And so please.
Yeah.
So what I want you to do is I want you to introduce yourself, but
Yeah.
I want you to not start with just your name, but get with your nervousness, right? Get with the, hey, you know, if I stutter or if you don't understand me, please, you know, give the audience permission to feel comfortable in asking you to repeat yourself. And then I want you to talk about why your project is so important to you, not to the New York City or not to your neighbors, but to you, why you're doing this, okay?
Okay. Okay.
Okay, tell me when you're ready.
I'm ready now.
Okay, so everybody in the audience, we all came to a meeting in, let's just say, Queens, and we have someone from the Department of Transportation to speak about ramps on the sidewalk. Ting, take it away.
Okay. My name is Ting Wang. Okay. So
okay.
I might feel a little bit nervous, so I might stutter during my talk. So if you have any question, want me to repeat myself, feel free to let me know about this. And why I think so now I'm working on presentation on accessibility ramp. And why I think this is important is because that all people have the right to be able to enter from the sidewalk to the building. For our regular people, we don't even think about it. Then we go on the step, go to the building. But for people who have special needs, accessibility needs, it's really important that we think for them. So, so accessibility ramp is very, very important. There's different rules rolling out by the ADA, and it's really to take care of everybody.
Okay, Ting, great. I want to stop you there. So I think you did a great job. Look, I don't think you stuttered, or maybe you did. I didn't notice it. But I want to ask the audience. So with her giving you the permission, her letting you know, I might stutter, but feel free to ask me to repeat myself. Do you think that helped you? And some of the feedback thing has been very positive, by the way. But I'm asking you. Okay, so we get a lot of yes. Transparent and humble. I believe it did. It made me feel more comfortable. This was obvious, and you addressed it. Okay? So for me, look, you have to use everything you know and have to your advantage. And what you're working on is not to enrich yourself. You're not building ramps to make money. You're doing this to help others. There are probably people who can speak clearer than you, but you're telling the audience that what you have to say is important, and that it's so important that you're willing to put yourself in an uncomfortable spot, but you don't want to make them feel uncomfortable. Right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Did it sound weird for you to say that, or what was going on in your head?
I think it's really interesting because you're talking, when we have our conversation, you talk about prepare something personal to say, and I wrote down a bunch of things, and the question you asked me to convey with this audience, it's not what I prepared for it. So it's really interesting to see how my own reaction to things, because when I start to talk, I start to find words, what's the best way to say it. So when you ask this question, it's the first thing that I have in my mind just coming out. So there's no structure. Yeah, I didn't prep for this. So I think it's actually really good exercise in some ways. Yeah.
No, that's right, Ting. So I could ask you to prepare, and you can write down things and take notes, and it probably makes you even more nervous. Because the question I ask and what you do during your presentation, look, you've done your research. your work on the project, you should know your project inside and out, what the benefits are. So if somebody asks you a question, it shouldn't be hard for you to explain it. Am I right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So with you, it's, sometimes because you're going to get nervous, you might over-prepare, and it may not alleviate your stress, right? What you should do is feel confident in all the prep work, everything that you do know, and then speak from the heart. Because as an audience member, you gave me permission to say, okay, I don't understand her, or I might have problems understanding her, and I'm not going to feel bad, and I could ask her because she said it's okay. So you won me over with that. And then you have a personal story or why you think that this is important. Who's going to argue against that, right? You just win people over. And I think that might be the best strategy for you, is to just really don't start with the project, start with you, make them like you, and then they'll keep an open mind and keep engaged with what you have to say, right? What do you think of that?
It's good. It's really interesting because listen to what you say from the first section, and then at first I was thinking about, well, I'll say whatever I need to say, well, what I prepared before I move to the front. I think my point is I really love to help people. I like to interact with people and learn from people. I think that's the starting point of everything that I do. So I think it's great.
But just what you said makes me like you as an audience. I've never met you. I'm sitting with 10 or 100 people with me, and what you just said, I'm like, I like this woman. I think if she cares about this and she shares this with me, I'm going to have to listen to what other things she has to say, right? Audience, do you guys agree with me, or what do you think? Feedback. Yeah, so there are a lot of people who agree. Yes, absolutely. Very genuine. Look, you are a genuine person. I'm telling you, this is what you have that's working for you. Okay. Any last words, Ping? Anything?
No, I just happy to have this opportunity to talk in front of you, to connect with you. I feel very grateful and blessed. Yeah.
That's great. Hey, and by the way, a lot of people are saying they love your smile. And, no one can fake a smile. So just, again, being you, there's so many positive things that you're getting from this audience that it should make you stronger when you present and hopefully take away for some of your nervousness.
Thank you so much.
Okay, great. Ting, please mute yourself and just shut your camera off. I appreciate it. All right, so we're going to take a 5-minute break. Please, everyone, I know it's tempting not to come back. Please come back. We have 2 more volunteers. 5 minutes. So at 12:58, please come back. Thank you. Okay, you guys, can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
All right. All right. What do you think? How's it going so far? Am I over time?
I think you might be running low on time. We're only scheduled to go till 1:30. Is that right, Allison?
I'm thinking like 1:20 and then questions, or 1:15, right? And then you guys get the last 5 minutes?
Well, to be quite honest with you, nobody has asked any specific questions so far. We actually discussed that we were going to do questions after each module.
Yeah.
All the questions that have been asked have been things that we're able to answer ourselves. You know, things about whether or not the presentation will be available, or, you know, stuff like that. So I don't think we're going to need long for Q&A. If you want to leave, if you want to be done by 1:20, no later than 1:25, I think we'd be okay.
Okay. All right. I think I have areas where I can cut it short if I need to at the end. Okay. Whew.
I think the audience is extremely engaged. You see the chat box is scrolling. So.
Who knew? The only way to be popular is bring other people, because nobody apparently likes me.
yeah, that must be it. Now,
well, no, you know that, Deb.
Is anybody going to, or do you plan to touch on storytelling at all?
Well, yes, the next one is, and I'm going to ask Kendall, the next volunteer, to give us just a quick 90-second story. I think what happened when I was thinking of doing this is that it really came to the point where it's just not enough time, So what I may say,
I would have went with 2 hours for this, definitely.
Well, what I would want to do now is, what I was thinking is at the end, if people are interested, we can do a deeper dive in each of the sections, and then we can plan that out, and we can do an hour and a half just on introduction, have more volunteers, hour and a half on, storytelling, et cetera. So this is kind of like a taste, and if people have an interest, we can do others. What's your thought on that, Deb?
One of the questions that we put out at the end, one of the polls, is, would you like to see more webinars on this topic?
Right. Okay.
So we'll know from that. But I would like to put together sort of a series. So if you determine that, we could do 4 more webinars or 2 more webinars, whatever the number may be, then let's schedule them, December, January, February, something like that, once a month or, whatever, and let's develop a series.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's what I'm thinking, because it's just, this training would be like a full day training, and I've done a 6-hour training just on Q&A before, so, it's a lot of info, but the interaction, I think, is what really helps people. It makes it stick.
Yeah. I also would not be adverse to repeating this. So let's say we want to do this in January and then another one in February, March, and April as follow-up. We have 250 people on the line today.
Okay.
So there is an interest. We are out of time. It did take Bibi a while to connect the audio. So let her start trying to make that connection, and let's go back on mute.
Yep.
Thanks.
Hey, Thomas, this is Eric. I just want to say thank you.
Okay, so I'm just going to give people maybe about 30 more seconds to get back. I've seen a couple things in the chat box about Toastmasters. There is a group called Toastmasters. They are, from what I hear, an excellent organization. They just really work together to you join a group and you practice your public speaking skills. There was one in New York City, and it was a federal employee version of Toastmasters. You can look them up online. Okay, we'll get back. I want to be mindful of everyone's time. So we've done the introduction. Great. Now, you got to keep them interested. What do you do in a virtual environment where it's so easy for people to multitask? One of the things is using just really great graphics. Now take a look at this one. I found this from Greenpeace, and it was a Russian marketing firm, and it was done in Russia. So this is maybe explains why I've never seen it here in the States. But what an amazing image. Right? They took plastic and they formed it into a weapon. And there's I don't know if you can see the text here, but it says softening your clothes. Now I need my glasses. Softening your clothes is making the life on the planet harder. Real thought-provoking. Will it change your mind? Probably not. But does it inject a thought, or does it get their idea into your mind? I think so. And something like this can get that person to pick their head up from their laptop and take a look. And maybe even wonder, will there be more like this? Because there's nothing more mind-numbing than a slide with 1,000 words. I saw one where they were talking about disaster funding, and it was in the billions, and the person had all the numbers down to the dollar, to the last dollar. At $10 billion, nobody cares about the hundreds and the thousands. All it was is it took up space, it took up your mind capacity, and it just really was very adverse and probably caused people to tune out. Now, what happens when you take it a step too far? And this is something you really need to avoid. Same marketing company, the same concept, right? They use these plastic and non-recyclable items to form an Uzi. And in this one, it says, a stay-at-home mother is not just a housewife, she's also a murderer. This, to me, I think missed the point. And this is what happens when you take it a little too far, where you don't want to make the audience uncomfortable, or you don't want them to insult them. So be very careful and cautious when you are using imagery that could be a little shocking. There's got to be a right balance. So, maybe bounce some ideas off our colleagues, but be mindful, because once you lose that audience, you may not get them back. And at least I have worked with a lot of engineers, and they are very good at what they do. And they live in their world of modeling, formulas, data, science, etc. And it all makes perfect sense to them. And it's not surprising. Calculation is a calculation. And what they do to justify what modeling they use, their outputs, etc., these are all things that are easily defended or explained. For most people, we don't live in that world. And many times, if you want to compel someone to take action or believe in what you want them to believe, you have to make it in terms that resonate and are relatable. So instead of using statistics, you should use stories. We have been communicating literally our whole lives. And our whole lives, we have been taught a lot about our culture, our society, or any other topics, usually through stories. That is how we are wired as human beings. And think about that when you have something important to say, because when you do put them in a story, it kind of immerses that person, the audience, into the story, having them navigate or experience what it is to come to that conclusion or that end that you want them to. It can be very powerful. And the words that you choose are very important. Think of the audience, their mind, as a blank room, a dark room. And your job is to shed a little light and start to furnish it. When you use words like leverage or synergy, effective, does that conjure up anything for you? Probably not. Try to be more descriptive. Anybody? All right, so I'm going to ask the audience, what words, what ways of communicating what it is that you deal with you think have the biggest impact? Like flooding or tornadoes or hurricanes, winds that rip through the air. I mean, these are words that make sense, that actually that actually leave an impression. Anyone else have others? Richard, good point. Ignore the corporate mumbo jumbo. Imminent danger. Right? Never use acronyms, correct. People don't get it. So when you really think about how you're explaining things, try to use those words that are actually substantial, that conjure up images or make that feeling, like when you walk into a damp room. Damp is a good word, but what about that musky room where you can just smell the water in the air? Hurricane winds screaming. These are ways to really make an impression on people. So when you tell the story, try to use those words that paint the picture. Thank you, Kelly. That you want to paint that picture. And the delivery. This is what monotone looks like. Just looking at it can put you to sleep. Now, not everyone expects people to speak like Martin Luther King or Jr. or JFK. Try to add a little variation to how you speak. It can make a huge, huge difference. And you can practice. If you have small kids or you're telling a story to somebody, try to put a little extra oomph into it. You can just read, once upon a time, there were 3 little pigs. Or, once upon a time, there were 3 little pigs. And that variation, for people who aren't looking at you, that might actually have them perked up. Doesn't sound like that monotone or background noise. It really perks people up. It makes people want to listen to what you have to say. And sometimes people think screaming is a way to get attention. But actually, if you whisper, it makes people lean forward. And a tool that is very underutilized is the pause. If you can't or do feel uncomfortable changing the tone of your voice, place a strategic pause in your sentence. Get used to it. One of the things I find with a lot of speakers, and this including myself early on, I felt very uncomfortable with silence. When there was silence, I got nervous, and I just tried to fill up that air with something. And that usually came with the ums and the uhs. But the pause, feel comfortable about it. Accentuate your point. What is it that you want to get across? What is that important word in the sentence? Stop, either before it or after it. Let it sink in. And often times that you'll get a lot of advice saying that a pause can help you with the ums and the ahs. And it is true. But the whole concept there is you just need to be in control or know the words that you're about to say before you say them. And that split second can give you the ability to continue speaking. But if you do hit a bump in the road, yes, take a pause. If you feel like you're losing your train of thought or you don't know what the next word should be, stop. It's a good time to ask the audience a question. What do you think about blah, blah, blah? Would you like me to get into more specifics about this? Don't forget that these presentations is not just with you, but there is an audience. And not only should you be engaging them, but you can always stop and use them to give yourself more time. And at the same time, bring them back in. All right, so we have our third volunteer, Kendall. Kendall, can you please take yourself off mute and start your camera, please? Kendall, you on?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, barely.
Barely. Is that better?
Just a little bit better. I don't know. Audience, can you hear him?
No.
No.
Okay. Okay. Wait, we got you there.
That's better?
Not really.
No.
How about that?
Nope, you're still very far away.
Still very far away.
Now you're coming in and out.
Okay.
Kendall, are you using a headset, or do you just want to try using speaker?
I'm pulling off my phone case and see if I know.
Yep.
Is that any different?
A little better.
Hello, can you hear me?
Perfect.
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 Okay.
Okay.
Can you start your camera, please? Okay, Kendall. Excellent. So you know what? Can you give us whatever you have worked on in the past or working on now, something that you feel comfortable speaking about? Can you give us a story, maybe a real life account or something that you experienced? Make it in 90 seconds.
Sure, absolutely. So I picked a topic here, hopefully that it's not cheating, but it's a little bit more exciting, I think. At one point in time, I was a ski instructor. So imagine, if you will, myself and a group of maybe 10 or 12 college students in a snowy field in upstate New York. It's a clear blue day, crisp air. Say it's probably early winter, and I'm standing in the field on the campus of Cornell University, gentle slope, brand new students, many of them from all different parts of urban United States and foreign countries. Some of them haven't even seen snow before, and many of them haven't even been on skis. So we're standing in this field, and I'm looking around, and I notice the students, everyone's getting a little bit more secure. Of course, there'd still be the occasional popcorn where someone would slip and fall spontaneously, and everybody would get a little chuckle out of that. And I notice all of these amazing high-tech, high-performance winter gear everyone's wearing. These are 18, 19, maybe 20-year-old college undergrads, and they're full of bright colors, full of high performance, moisture wicking, snow shedding, wind breaking material. And and then I look down and I notice the Gore-Tex pants that I'm wearing that have been stitched and patched and held together now over the years, and realize that these pants that I'm wearing I've had longer than any of the people in the class have been alive. And that was a moment for me to get a chuckle and kind of put in perspective this in the class experience and this day that we're about to have together.
Excellent, Kendall. So that was great. And I think there's some good feedback here. You were very descriptive. I think you did a good job of bringing us in and putting us in the middle of your story, painting us the picture. So I think that was really great. What I would say is, like I was saying to the others, kind of flip that script on its head, okay? So that end, I love the end, but what if you were to start with something that either is the end or alludes to the end? You get what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So Kendall, so you're speaking, nobody knows who you are, and you want to break the ice, and you're giving them this personal story, and then, just to start with that, bam, my pants are as old as you, or, I whatever it is that you wanted to get across, start with that, and then work your way backwards. You want to try that?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So how about, I'll go from the perspective of being the ski teacher for the class. Does that sound
good? Sure. Whatever you want to do.
Okay. It's great to have everyone here today. It's a beautiful day for us. We've got the clear sky and nice snow.
Kendall, can I stop you for 1 second?
Please.
Forget the thank you for coming here or good to have you. Forget that. We're all here. I think you missed, you have a window of opportunity to really start off strong. It's a clear day, right? It's a clear day like, go ahead.
Say it again?
You there? No, I said go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt. Now, go ahead. Just scrap out the formalities, the niceties, and get right to your story. It's a clear day like, or however you want to start it.
Oh, okay, I got you. It's a clear day, and I'm just noticing here that my pants are as old as all of you all are.
Okay, go ahead. Continue the story for a little bit.
Gosh, I hadn't considered how difficult it would be just to make that small of an adjustment.
Yeah. No, I know, and it's almost counter to everything you're probably used to or done in the past.
Yeah.
But look, some of the chat here is saying, LOL, and it's a chuckle, and boy, what an icebreaker, right? How do you not I don't know where I read this, but you can't hate somebody or be angry at anybody if you're smiling. It's impossible. If you make people smile, it breaks the ice, it makes them comfortable, and they want to hear more from you. So if you're talking about whatever it is your mission is, you just broke the ice. You don't have to talk about flooding, hurricanes. You say, dang, I'm as old as, my pants are as old as any of you. Mm-hmm. It's a nice icebreaker, and it puts people at ease. So, and I'm sorry, Kendall, I'm a little jammed up for time.
Go for it.
But, yeah, but no, thank you very much for stepping in and helping out here. Anyway, any last words or comments from you?
That's a fantastic challenge. I appreciate the perspective shift. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. If you can mute yourself, sir, and take yourself off camera, thank you. Okay, we are heading into the stretch. Here's our last module, and talking about closing strong. And a lot of times, people will take this for granted. They'll say, all right, it's time for the Q&A, and then it's all over. You've put too much time into your presentation. Do not end on other people's ideas or their words. Always summarize, wrap it up, and put that call to action. And when it comes to questions, it starts with listening. And Stephen Covey is an author. He's a successful entrepreneur. He's written a lot of great books. And what I quoted him saying is something that is so real. And even in a personal setting, I listen to people talk, and I realize they're either talking over each other, or one person speaks, the other person speaks. not even related or relevant. While what you do in your personal time is your business, you want to be a powerful speaker. Listen to your audience. React to them. If they know you're listening to them, they will give you more of their trust. They will listen to what you have to say. When it comes to questions, there are 4 ways to answer all questions. You either respond directly, you refer to another person. Oh, you're asking about hurricanes. I deal with floods. My colleague deals with hurricanes, and I can connect you to them. Or you can deflect by saying, I don't have the information at this time. I will get you more information, and then I will circle back with you. And the redirect, and that's a little bit more complicated. And so the redirect requires you to do a little shifting. And so here's the anatomy of that question, of how to answer those questions. You get the question, you acknowledge it. You validate the way the person feels or their position, and then you provide a bridge, which is a transition phase. And try not to use the word but. Use the word but. It sounds like everything you said before is to be disregarded. And then you get to the proof and eventually transition back to your message. So, hey, that's a great question about your home never flooding. That is an experience of a lot of people. And our job is to help those, whether or not they flooded or not, because our information shows that they can, because it's important that people are safe from natural disasters whenever possible. So it's important that we have a structured response and always start with the validating, because people will often say good question or great question. I know that's the easy way to say it, but if you want to do it, you can also tell them why it's a great question. Very insightful question. Those little extra words make people feel special, and it helps to disarm them, and it may help for them to accept your answer, especially if it's against what they believe. Okay, sorry, I think I'm having some connectivity issues. The next slide really has to do with disarming. Again, you don't want, if for those difficult questions, you don't want to get involved with a head-to-head response. You want to basically divert their energy, their opposition. And it only works if you can show them or prove to them you understand. Okay? If somebody doesn't believe what you have to say, and you don't validate or show them, demonstrate that you do, they're never going to listen to what you have to say. When they give you an opposing point, a great thing you can do is just repeat it. So, does this mean that you feel, believe it or not, that really puts people at ease? And it makes them feel, hey, this person knows what I'm talking about. And because of that, maybe their answer is relevant. If I am disagreeing with you and you don't acknowledge or show me that you understand my position, why would I even listen to you? So this is something that we do with the negotiations. And I think I touched upon this in the last webinar. For the interest of time, we're going to have to skip this slide because I really want to get to Lynette. And Lynette, I'm so sorry. We're really running out of time. So we're going to have to kind of go through this a little quickly. Lynette, are you on?
Yes, I'm here. Okay,
Lynette. Lynette, she works for the Congressman Andy Kim's office in New Jersey. Lynette, you answer a lot of questions. Just give me an issue of the day that you've talked about last, or something that's important for your district.
One of the calls, well, we get a lot of calls about people trying to get personal protection right now. Where can they get tested for COVID? Get a lot of calls, people waiting for their stimulus checks that haven't come yet.
Okay.
So a lot of things like that.
So Lynette, let's just say you talk about PPE, and I'm one of your constituents, and I'm angry. I said, Lynette, the congressman isn't doing enough for me. I live with my parents. They're very old. I have to go shopping. Why can't you get me some PPE? How would you respond to that?
First, I'd say, well, thank you so much for calling and reaching out to our office. We really appreciate it when we hear from constituents, and I give you a lot of credit for calling us. I know it's
Good.
not always easy to call. I understand what you're saying. It's a really, really difficult situation right now, and it is a really big problem. Our office and Congressman Kim is doing everything that we can to get people PPE and get the supply up. And perhaps I could help you find some places that may have it, that you could get it for your parents. So
okay.
Where do you, okay.
No, I'm sorry, Lynette. I didn't mean to cut you off. But it's a very good response. Now, I know, let me tell you, I respond to correspondence that gets sent to the region, our regional office. And oftentimes I start, thank you for contact. I don't think anybody really cares that you're thankful that they called you, right? But I love the part where, hey, you know what? It takes a lot to motivate you to contact us, or it takes a lot of effort, or it takes courage, or what have you. And I think that's awesome. And maybe, again, when somebody is saying something like, hey, I need this because, and I think somebody said this in the chat, it's one of that repeating, like, hey, thank you for letting the congressman know, thank you for letting our office know. What it sounds like is, this is what you need, or this is what that you're seeking. Maybe have them respond, you know, and this way you can kind of dial it down, because they can't get angry at you for repeating what they, you know, just to confirming what they say. Does that make sense? Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and it's surprising because it takes very little effort to say, hey, can I just confirm that this is what you want? And I think what it shows is a degree of care. Like, why you say thank you is, yay, I want to acknowledge that, you know, we're at the end of the day, it's like you go to McDonald's and you buy something and they say thank you for shopping at McDonald's. You're like, I know you don't really care. You know, you're just doing your job, and it's a robotic answer. So maybe by elaborating on, and I think you did that a little bit, was thank you for making the effort to let us know how we can help you. Those just switching a couple words around and sounding a little different can make it can make somebody feel better about themselves, which again can dial down the tension. Does that make sense, Lynette?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm so sorry. This is my fault. I ran out of time. Lynette, I'm so, I apologize for cutting you off. So, and I promise, if we do this the next time, we'll, promise I'll give you as much time as you want. So look, I want to wrap this up, and be true to my word. Let me wrap this up. Here's the summary, the 4 things. Think about your audience. Just don't make this about you. Make this about them. And don't be afraid to ask them, what do you want? What do you want me to talk about? People will love it, and they'll listen to you. They'll be more engaged. Make that first great impression. Don't just say, hello, thank you, my name is. Start with a bang. Start with something different and wake them up. And then keep them interested. Like, find some nice art. Don't just do clip art or stick figures. And just continue saying stories to engross them and engage them. And at the end, get those questions out of the way, and then do a summary, and then tell them what to do. So what I would ask everybody to do is, next time you're doing a presentation, do something that you would not normally do, something out of the ordinary, hopefully something that I just covered, and let me know how that worked out. For that, again, thank you very much, everybody, and I'll give this back to the facilitators.
Thanks, Thomas. That was very good. I wish we did have more time to go into Lynette's presentation a little bit. We'll just have to invite her to come back again. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for everybody who attended today. We hope that we are providing you with valuable tools to do your job and to be better prepared for all hazards, and to engage with our constituents. There is a very short 3-question survey on the screen right now. If you wouldn't mind taking the time, it really does help us to to drive what programs we offer and continue to offer. On the break, Thomas and I were talking about, maybe doing a series of presentations. Maybe we can go a little bit more in depth into some of the modules he covered today. So if that's something of interest, then definitely question number 3, answer yes. We do have several webinars coming up for October, starting Thursday, where we're going to have an active shooter exercise, as well as an exercise toolkit that people can adopt and learn how to do their own tabletop exercises in their community, whether that's a house of worship or a school, a PTA, or some other club. It's a good tool to learn. Next week is the Great American Shakeout, and we will have presenters from the Puerto Rico seismic group down at the university in Spanish on Wednesday and in English on Thursday. And then the following week is a Ready Seniors workshop. That workshop is for agencies that serve senior citizens, not necessarily for senior citizens themselves, but how these agencies can be better prepared. I know a lot of these assisted living facilities were really unprepared for COVID-19. So how can we get facilities and other organizations that serve our seniors to be better prepared for future hazards? Ham radio is coming up, emergency operation planning, tsunami in the Northeast. I didn't think it was a possibility, but apparently it is. And You Are the Help Until Help Arrives is a great training. This is the first time we'll be doing that virtually, and basically tells you the 5 steps you need to keep yourself and the injured safe and alive and stop the bleeding until professional help can arrive on the scene. So all of our webinars, including today's, have been recorded. They could be found on that middle link to see what webinars we have coming up, the first link. And if you aren't already subscribed to Region 2 News, we send out a weekly webinar update and a bi-weekly bulletin every 2 weeks. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email me or any of my team at the FEMA R2 Prepares email address. And the last thing I'll mention, we did move over a pod to download the slides. It's right next to the caption and pod. So if you would like the slides, a PDF of the slides from today's presentation, you can download them. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. It's 1:32. Have a wonderful day. You're free to drop.